Welcome to Untold Valor, a podcast with a unique focus on veterans with stories of courage, recovery, perseverance, and strength. Listen as veterans share their perspective on what it's like to battle mental health challenges, combat addictions, and overcome other adversities unique to those who have served. This week on the podcast, Colonel Arthur L. Jenkins is joining us on the show.
This podcast is brought to you by Voice and Vision, bringing help, hope, and healing to individuals, families, and communities affected by mental illness, addictions, and disabilities in southeastern Pennsylvania. Financial support for this podcast is provided by a Veterans Trust Fund grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Welcome to Untold Valor, a podcast with a unique focus on veterans, featuring stories of courage, recovery, perseverance, and strength. Listen to hear veterans share their perspectives on what it's like to battle mental health challenges, combat addictions, and overcome other adversities unique to those who have served.
Hey everybody, welcome into this episode of the podcast with Reverend Ben and myself here once again to talk with our very special guest, Colonel Arthur L. Jenkins Jr., who's visiting with us here on the podcast this week. And he's already said we could call him Art, so we're going to call him Art to kind of make it relaxed and feel at home here. But I would read his bio, except that it's really, really big. So he has accomplished a lot in his military career. So I'm going to bring him in and just let him talk to us a little bit about himself. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am doing well, Mark. And, allow me to say just how thrilled, humbled, and honored I am to be with you wonderful folks today. Very much so. Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you being here with us to share your story. And of course, we're into January for this episode, the release of this episode. So, new year, new focus, right? Trying to get our, moving forward, all those good things, maybe putting in a plan of action versus just, what is that, the resolution, right? Which is kind of just a wish if you don't do anything with it. And so we're going to talk about lots of good things here today on the podcast with Art. But Reverend Ben, welcome in as well. How are you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling fantastic. Looking forward to an opportunity to talk with Colonel Arthur Jenkins.
Absolutely. So, sir, take it away. Tell us a little bit about your background, your military career, the things that you've just gone through. Like I said, your bio is pretty darn impressive.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you much. Thank you much. Been blessed to have accomplished a few things and, happy to share just a bit of it. So, yeah, you know what? I enlisted after my freshman year at Temple University many moons ago. Was only going to do a 6-year Army Reserve commitment. I was at Temple University. I was in the honors program. So, as such, you're expected to maintain a certain grade point average. I was also in the dormitories as I ran on the track team that year. So although I was born and raised in West Philadelphia, living in the dormitories for freshman year, that was essentially my first time away from home. And it was party city for me. So, yes, I didn't quite live up to the academic standards that were expected of me as an honors student. And I recall at the end of that year, my mother, she was so very disappointed in me and didn't want to really disappoint mom like that. So I told my mother, I said, well, Mom, I tell you that discipline that I once had that I seem to have let escape from me, I'm going to get it back, Mom. I'm going to do that by joining the Army Reserves. I'll do a 6-year commitment, get that discipline back, and embark upon the path that you are used to your oldest son doing.
Okay.
Well, so now, close to 40 years later, here we are, Mark, and I'm still there, there.
Yeah, you've turned it into quite the career. So I was reading here, you're one of only 59 to graduate from an OCS class that originally began with 125 officer candidates. Just one of many things here. Continue to enlighten us, please.
Sure. So, as I tell many people, as I approach the conclusion of that 6-year initial Army Reserve tour, I was really fortunate and blessed to come into some extraordinary mentors. I think mentorship, even to this day, is so grossly underrated.
Yes, sir.
But I was fortunate. I came into the company of some really enlightened and accomplished mentors who saw some leadership qualities in me, thought I was a smart enough fella, and said, "You need to apply for officer candidate school." And of course, even then I knew what a rigorous institution OCS is and was. So I was a little resistant, but again, that's the value of mentorship. Short of a stranglehold, they did convince me to apply, and I was accepted into the Pennsylvania State Officer Candidate School program. As you stated, Mark, orientation weekend, we started with 125 officer candidate hopefuls, but by the time the smoke cleared, 59 of us would actually endure the rigorous scholastic and physical challenges posed to one in officer candidate school. And that's where my journey as an officer pretty much began.
Wow. And so, how long did you serve your full career, sir?
Sure. So total, as of this podcast with you, I've got 39 years and 8 months.
Wow.
So most of those years are reserve years, of course, but I have spent the past, I would say roughly 16 years, I've been mobilized to active duty. Lots of things going on in the world.
Sure.
And so, I have been mobilized and I have answered the call. So the split within those 39 years are about 25 years reserve duty and 15 years mobilized.
Yeah, I see here it says in 2021 you were mobilized to function as the Taskforce Medical Commander for Operation Allies, and that's a humanitarian mission responsible for the effective resettlement of over 50,000 Afghan allies. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, if I must take you to the top, one Friday evening, I was in my family room watching a Hallmark movie when the phone rang. And the colonel who was on the phone, he informed me that our brigade had picked up that mission for Operation Allies Welcome, and that essentially I would be that fella who would serve as Taskforce Medical Commander of the 50,000 Afghans and their family members who were brought here. Just under 13,000 were sent to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. That was one of the designated safe havens, as they were called. Those military installations where the Afghans were brought and would go through the paces to eventually be resettled anywhere around the United States. So, there wasn't much time to prepare for it. I got the call, and 2 weeks later, I was on my way to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. So, essentially, it was a massive humanitarian mission, but I must say it was one in which I learned a whole lot about the humanitarian mission cause, and I learned a lot about myself. When you bring a task force together, there are multiple entities. It was led at the time by the State Department. Ultimately, the Department of Homeland Security would take over the mission as a whole, but you have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, FEMA was there, Centers for Disease Control, because we were still navigating through a pandemic, and many non-governmental organizations or NGOs comprise the task force. So lots of fast-moving parts, but it was pretty incredible. We ran a couple mass vaccination campaigns for the Afghans and their families. We took care of them, and there were different babies who were born, and we kept it running as a smooth running machine from the medical side of the house, even as they went through the other aspects of resettlement, effective resettlement.
Gotcha.
And it was incredible. It was pretty incredible that it was anticipated it would take us a year to resettle the close to 13,000, but we were really, I was blessed to have had a really skilled task force working for me, and we were done in 5 months.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. One of the things we talk about on the podcast, obviously, is just talking about the trials and tribulations, and with a 40-year career, basically, obviously you've seen, lots of things and had, I'm sure, your fair share of struggles along the way. or even with people in your command or things of that nature. Is that kind of been your experience as well as seeing young men come in and out, and often like the transfer sometimes of I guess regular life, right, civilian life to the military, and also the transfer back out of that tends to be a struggle for many as well.
Oh, sure. You hit the nail right on the head. You really did, particularly from the Army Reserve side of the house. There can be challenges that service members face even before they enlist or before they are called to active duty. So that makes it all the more challenging right there. And then serving, like even during Operation Allies Welcome, some of my task force members, like a couple of the females who served, they had left babies at home. I mean, little babies. So that was a stressor on them for sure. And just to fast forward to another point you made, the transition from active duty back to civilian status can really be challenging if there's no plan in place per se, and just adjusting to the fast pace of active duty, to any stones that were left unturned prior to entering on active duty. All of that can culminate in just different stressors for a service member. So yeah. All of that comes together as such, and you're absolutely right. I've seen a little bit of everything in my lengthy Army Reserve career.
Yeah, for sure. Reverend Ben, come on in. Anything as you're listening to this that strikes you for some conversation points here? Obviously, your time in the service was a little different, but certainly worthwhile.
One thing we can say for sure about the military is that the diverse experience that we have, being exposed to different cultures, different training, and also different contingencies as well. And Colonel, I just want to commend you on your track record. I've served under a lot of good leaders as well. I served as a corpsman with the Marines, and so I can relate to some of your story about the adjustments that we have to make pertaining to whatever Uncle Sam calls us to go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Reverend Ben. Yeah, absolutely. And I very much want to thank you for your service as well, Reverend Ben, and just for taking in the experiences that you have had and sharing them even today. I have no doubt that makes a world of difference to those individuals that you mentor and who come into contact with you.
For sure.
Indeed.
Yes.
I was going to ask you about that, Colonel. So mentorship, you made a big point about that. Obviously you're still working and doing things, but is that something that you see that we need more of? Is it something where you kind of feel like we need to kind of do a better job with the transition and with that mentorships?
Oh, without a doubt. I shared with you just how, I don't know, shall we say goofy I was looking to get out after my first 6 years, and just having that hedge of support. And some were officers, but some were non-commissioned officers. The senior level sergeants and first sergeants and sergeants first class who pulled me aside to provide me with a greater picture of what life looked like, not only at that time, but what it could look like if I went after some things. And
great point. Yeah.
And helping me to instill some courage in me, much like I was a little apprehensive about entering officer candidate school. When you're young like that, looking at the world through 3 dimensions can be rather daunting and even somewhat intimidating. So, Oh yes, mentorship, woefully underrated, and even today, maybe especially today.
Yeah, and I think, finding resources, right, too, sometimes, I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast with different guests. There's not a shortage of resources. The shortage is like how to connect veterans who are struggling or veterans who just need some help in whatever regard it might be. I mean, you don't have to be at the worst low of your life. You could just need some help in whatever it might be. But any of that range, it's just connecting to the resources, whether that is the stigma of asking for help, or if it's just not sure how to cut through the red tape, whatever it might be. It's there's definitely resources. We just got to do a better job of highlighting them. Is that maybe fair?
100% accurate. I look at my position here, and I've not been in the position very long, about 4 months, not quite 4 months, here as the county director for the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs for Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, and just coming into the position. To your point, there are a great many individuals, organizations, entities that want to do good things for veterans, but it's two-pronged. As you say, I find myself, as I circulate around the county here, just putting out the good word. Hey, the office is alive and well, and did you know? And then from there, just speaking something in the way of the health benefits that many veterans qualify for, or even financial benefits that, well, we don't know what we don't know. So just putting out the good word as to what's available. And then secondly, if it's something that my office doesn't formally do, establishing effective points of connectivity. It's like, okay, so there's a behavioral health need here, so we will plug this individual in there, and making that a nice direct connection as opposed to a 1-800 number that goes into outer space.
Exactly. Yeah, that's and really, Ben, that's what a lot of what you guys do with Voice and Vision, and what what the team does at Compure Core, right? It's really trying to get those point-to-point connections versus just that random here call a number that you may get a person disinterested or even a robotic answer.
Absolutely, we like to connect people to resources. Not just, like you said, just to throw it out there, but to connect veterans to resources that can help them to change and not stay the same.
Yes, absolutely. Something that you both hit on as well. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, the hesitancy of veterans, men and women, to talk about any needs that they might have. And,
right.
That hesitancy could come from a variety of areas. When they served proudly. They were strong, powerful figures, and might not be conditioned to ask for help. And there could be other underlying causes. But what I found early on in this position within Delaware County, just the great power in coming together and sharing and talking from the perspective of veteran to veteran, or at a minimum, one compassionate individual to another. That reaps benefits as well, just as far as garnering and outpouring of expression. You know what? You all are some good folks, and let me tell you what I'm going through. Let me tell you what I need.
Yeah.
So I found that early on in the position as well.
Yeah, no, that's spot on for sure. And I get that it's harder for some folks than it is for others, right? And sometimes you need whatever the personal catalyst is. We had a guest on prior to you in this month, Colonel, where he was like, he was done. He was ready to give up, right? And it took a couple of specific things to happen to kind of show him a path forward. And I know that that's the case for many veterans. So you've got to find that. You've got to find that piece in yourself. Hopefully there's still that nugget in there that makes you want to reach out and find some help. And then once you do, getting someone to open those doors, I think you'll find is a lot easier than we first feel it is, right? At first we think this is so daunting, I'm never going to get through this. But if you can just get to one doorstep, it's pretty amazing what'll happen from there, I think.
Yes, very much so. And I think one consistent aspect of my lengthy career, culminating in the position that I'm functioning in now. So when I started in this position in mid-August, I set out on a very deliberate listening tour. So as I circulated about the county, and even so in my time, I've held 4 commands, 2 at the company level, 1 as a lieutenant colonel, and of course, Taskforce Medical Commander. I always enter every command, every position, if you will, as a listener. My philosophy goes something along the lines of, okay, well, although the final decision will rest with me, I want to be informed by all of you. So
yes.
In an ideal world, what has been happening prior to my arrival, and what, in your humble estimation, needs to happen? That's very empowering. And in two directions. It genuinely helps me because whatever organization I'm in, or on the military side of the house, whatever command I'm in, it's very informative because it helps me to see what I cannot see because I wasn't there. And then on the other side, when I ask a private first class, what do you think? Or what have you seen? And what do you think needs to happen? Help me. That's very affirming and empowering to that private first class who's only been in for a couple years, maybe a few years. Just knowing that a full bird colonel values his or her opinion. So we really do. Within all of us is an innate need to feel significant, and that's because we are significant. And I'll seek guidance from my senior officers, my lieutenant colonels, majors, and captains, but you can best believe I've always sought good guidance from my privates and my specialists and my junior grade sergeants as well. So
yeah,
that's very helpful and necessary.
Yeah, well said. I know my daughter would right now she's listening to this, she'd be like, I want to work for him because she's had a couple of, she's in the Navy and she's got a chief that doesn't listen, and then she has had chiefs that do, right? And she said it just makes a world of difference. Those ones that, take the time to listen to what they're going through as well. So, well said. Well, as we wrap this up, sir, you mentioned, the new position you're in. Tell us a little bit more about that. I know you've touched on it a little bit. And then any resources or even just messages that you'd like to share with the podcast listeners out there as someone who's been obviously active in helping in doing this in the military for 40 years.
Sure. Thank you much, Mark. So yes. So again, this is the Delaware County Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. I'll send that to you, Mark.
Yeah, send us any links. We'll put it in the resource tab for the episode.
Yes, absolutely. So ostensibly, the position calls for the raising awareness and the securing of any health and financial benefits that veterans or their spouses might qualify for. We will determine that. I have a very incredible, competent, and compassionate staff here. They will assess the paperwork that you bring in, like your DD-214, any applications that need to be submitted. My staff is all on board for that. And again, if there's a need that the veteran and his or her family might need that we don't specifically do, like my office doesn't, we don't conduct behavioral health services here, but we are plugged into individuals who do. Again, that's why I'm so very glad to be connected to Compeer Corps, for instance, as a viable connection to a veteran in need.
Gotcha.
We do that. And then as far as an enduring message that I would love to convey to everyone. So last month, of course, November, that was Veterans Day, and there were probably anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 events, as it should have been, for veterans to come together and be celebrated and celebrate one another. In my very intense and deliberate listening tour, if you will, veterans want to continue to come together and gather, not necessarily formally, but so I shared this story with you. I was talking to a veteran, and this is a story I've shared a couple times. The veteran, he said, yeah, Colonel, I know a little more about your bio, and I know that you're a runner, and I'd like to challenge you to a 50-meter dash. And I said, really now? I said, okay, well, if you don't mind me asking you, sir, how old are you? And he said, I'll be 70 in December, but I can take you down. So I said, okay, well, challenge accepted, but we'll just have to make sure there are no cameras around just in case the race doesn't know, just in case I don't win that race. So, but right there, just the coming together, maybe to do light stretching exercises or to drink hot cocoa in the midst of other veterans, the continued coming together, I believe, is an effective tool to mitigate, if not eliminate, feelings of despair, isolation, or even worse. So look for this office to put out information about just different activities that we will be doing in conjunction with the different American Legion posts and Veterans of Foreign War posts. We will seek to augment their efforts to generate fellowship amongst veterans and their family members. I think that is key to us being the best military affiliated community we can be.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Colonel Jenkins. We certainly appreciate your time. Reverend Ben, thank you for being here as always. Any parting thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I would just like to say, Colonel, thank you for coming on. And I can already see that we have some future endeavors coming up as we network to help the veteran. I think that we're going to be getting some work done in the county.
Oh, yes, Reverend Ben. And all I can say is that makes me exceedingly excited because who doesn't love supporting and helping a veteran? I think that's the one area that transcends race, political persuasions, religion, support for veterans. That's always just an honorable thing to do. And why I think that ultimately that's the key to bringing us all together, whatever our likes or dislikes are.
Absolutely. Hear. Well said. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the podcast. Again, we were delighted to have Colonel Arthur Jenkins here with us on this month's episode of Untold Valor, Veterans Recovery in Action. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platforming app you like to use, and check out the resources that we'll have available in the show notes for this particular episode, where you can catch some of the details that Colonel was talking about. So thank you so much, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time here on Untold Valor. You've been listening to Untold Valor by Voice and Vision. We hope you found the information and resources discussed today helpful. As always, thank you for listening and for your support. Remember to stay connected with us through our various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to visit the website, voiceandvisioninc.org. That's voiceandvisioninc.org, where you can sign up for our blog and find free resources and information on upcoming events, webinars, workshops, and get support. You can also access our free help and hope guide for individuals and families struggling with substance use and addiction. If someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help because you and your life matter. Remember, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available to you at any time by dialing 988. We are all ambassadors of hope and recovery. And if you want to share your story, please contact us. Compeer Corps is also looking for veteran mentor volunteers and veteran participants. To find out more information about Compeer Corps, please call 610-541-0790. That's 610-541-0790. You can find all the links and contact information for the resources mentioned on today's episode by checking the description and the show notes section of your app. Thank you again for tuning in and for your support. Until next time, this has been Untold Valor.